Please, get out of me. Get out of me, please. No. No, no, please, please, me. No, I don't want to make another video. No. Episode 2. Video games. Video games are the closest that we as lazy, disgusting, filthy bags of meat will ever get to doing interesting and extraordinary feats. The greatest drama that we can once again experience in our sad, pitiful, meaningless little lives is once again accessed through that grand obsidian master that dominates the living sphere, the television. So as an advocate of cinema and filmmaking, how can I possibly say that video games are the most dramatic experience that human beings can have? And I have a simple one-word answer for everyone involved. Oh, interactivity. Video games allow us to interact with a fleeting world created purely to expand our ability to procrastinate on the way to our graves. And that interactivity allows us to forge our own persona and project them into the games that we're playing. This in itself is why most video game protagonists are unspeaking automatons. It allows us to project ourselves into the in-game roles that we seek to fulfill. First-person games do this particularly well through their use of cameras, giving us the eyes of the character and throwing us right into the heat of battle. It shows us exactly what we'd really see if we were really there, really shooting and really murdering all of those people. This in itself is why there's always such a massive furore surrounding the idea of violent video games, and always follows their release. Trailing meekly behind every violent video game release is this horrible, twisted, malnourished runt of a creature, in its wake stirring up a sickening media feeding frenzy of stories that are tenuously linked back to the video game, that allows the government through the media to control how parents feel and think about video games and thus ostracize their children accordingly. Now this crap has been going on for as long as there's been a generation gap between children and their parents. Historically, the demonization of popular trends and escapist outlets has always occurred in relation to rebellion and teenage angst. Here's just a few examples. Manner of dress. Interacting outside of your own social class. Not being racist enough. Rock and roll music. Blues music. Motown music. Punk. Heavy metal. D. Schneider. Metal music. Satanism. Religion. Drugs. Marilyn Manson. Sex. Sex. Sexy sex. Sexy sex, sex, sex. 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 Personal transportation. Politics. Sexuality. Gender. Literature. Ideology. And last but not least, video games. Whenever there's a great human tragedy, instead of looking inside ourselves in an introspective and reflective manner, we always create scapegoats because it's an easier way of understanding the situation than looking at the ugly creature beast we are. It's easier to blame others than to think, maybe, just maybe, the situation might be your own fault and the direct result of your own personal neglect. Now, these scapegoats have always been created as a result of intense human tragedy. Children killing children, and more terrifyingly for those who advocate the banning of violent video games, children killing adults. It's a difficult subject to come to terms with due to the fact that it's intrinsically ugly at its core. Children killing people is not funny in any circumstance, and due to this needs to be handled with some level of base sensitivity. The core debate is nature versus nurture, always and forevermore. Are we defined by our genetics, or are we defined by the environment in which we grow up in? Violent video games, violent films, and violent television are not to blame. Irresponsible parenting is to blame. Not educating your children properly due to your own laziness is to blame. Not teaching your child emotional responsibility, compassion, and empathy is to blame. Not being a parent and allowing the TV to babysit your children is to blame. You are to blame, you are to blame, and you are to blame. There's nobody else to blame because of one simple fact. Violence in the media is heavily and strictly controlled to prevent it from entering the hands of minors who can be easily influenced by its violent and graphic content. Because of this, films come with classifications, and certain TV shows aren't able to be aired before a watershed. And like films and TV shows, video games come with classifications and are heavily age regulated. That therefore means that if a child wants to play a violent video game, an adult has to supply said video game. The level of control governed by legislation and prosecution with regards to the sale of video games to minors and people that are underage is enough to ensure that that's the last thing that retailers want to happen. And when it comes down to the sale of age-controlled products in the UK, most retailers will ID up to the age of 25, and that's just for products which are clearly labelled 18. These are the levels that retailers have to go to in order to protect themselves from the massive fines that they'd incur if they actually sold those products to children. A child can't go into a shop and purchase a DVD, for example, that has an 18 logo on it. Similarly, that same child can't go into the cinema and watch a film that has an 18 on it or a 15. And just to make it clear, the same goes for video games. Bayonetta, 15. Saints Row the 3rd, 18. Brink, 60. God of War Ascension, 18. Metal Gear Solid, 15 plus. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, 15. Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, 15. Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, 15. Silent Hill 2, 15. Assassin's Creed 2, 15. Little Big Planet 2, 7 plus. So, when it comes down to it, how are children getting hold of these controlled products? Now, children may be disgusting, belligerent, annoying, patience-testing creatures, but you begot them from your own fetid loins, and now they're here to stay, and it's your responsibility to bring them up in a way that prevents them from killing people. It's your job to ensure that they don't go around putting innocents to death, not societies or video game publishers. I know it's easier to just give in to their constant demands and give them whatever they want, but that's not fair to the child. You're doing them a disservice, and that's known as bad parenting. All you have to do is turn on the TV and put on your favourite trash show, and you can see the society that you are creating by giving in to your child continuously. That's the society that you're painting us into. You're painting us into a corner, all for a couple of moments of quiet and peace, you asshole. But I digress. The main point here is that video games don't create monsters. Parents do. Eventually. I mean, with all these violent and bloody video games out there, surely the world is ending and all of society is being burnt to the ground. I mean, aren't the streets swamped with violent gangs of Tech-9 toting, meth-smoking toddlers as they rape and pillage their way to power? Are there not terrifying pigmen in every town square, massacring innocents whilst their flaccid penises swing in the breeze? Where are the mercenary units riding mechs, fighting genitally tentacular schoolgirls in space? Out there, nothing is happening. You see, all of those things are exactly what the media wants you to believe. Now grown-ups, adults, parents, whatever you want to call yourselves, you are denizens of responsibility, and you should listen to this next part. You can learn an important lesson about dissociating from reality from your children, the children that you've left to the merciless, clammy hands of video games. You see, children understand that it's just a game and all good fun in the end. Just entertainment. Entertainment because the world we live in is boring and sickening and chock full of people who will forever tell them that they are evil because they're so completely out of touch with reality and lusting for power.
No. Let me go to know. Please. Please.